If you think canned goods are the ultimate pantry heroes, think again. There are 13 powdered foods that blow every can in your cupboard out of the water. Some with a jaw-dropping 27-year shelf life. These aren't some secret military rations or overpriced survival kits. Nope, they're the same everyday staples your parents and grandparents quietly stockpiled for decades. While we've been busy chasing trendy freeze-dried meals and overpriced prepper kits. Turns out they knew something we didn't. Here's the kicker. Certain powdered foods, when stored right, never go bad. That's right, decades of shelf life, no expiration date in sight. And today, I'm spilling the beans on all 13 of them. Number 7. You're not ready for it. It's a basic kitchen staple most people toss without a second thought. Yet it can outlast a mortgage and still taste fresh. And the final item? Even hardcore preppers forget this one. But it could save your next meal when the shelves are bare. I've spent over a decade testing emergency foods, powdered staples, and storage methods. I've wasted hundreds of dollars on foods that spoiled too soon and learned exactly which powders are the real deal and which ones are just marketing fluff. So, if you're ready to take control of your pantry, feed your family for decades, and never worry about spoiled food again, grab a pen. Let's dive into the 13 powdered foods that seniors never forgot to stockpile, and neither should you. Non-fat powdered milk. The pantry's quiet hero. Let's kick things off with a classic that's been a staple in every savvy senior's pantry for decades. Non-fat powdered milk. If you think milk is one of those foods that spoils quickly, think again. This powdered version can last an astonishing 25 to 30 years when stored properly. Yes, you read that right. 3 decades of shelf life, quietly sitting in your cupboard, ready to save the day when you need it most. So what makes non-fat powdered milk so special? It's not just some cheap knockoff of fresh milk. This is the real deal. Actual milk with the moisture removed and the fat stripped out. Why does that matter? Because fat is what causes milk to go rancid. By removing it, you're left with a product that's practically immortal when stored in a cool, dry, and oxygen-free environment. Here's the beauty of it. Add water and you've got milk. Not some weird chalky substitute, but actual milk you can drink, bake with, pour over cereal, or stir into your coffee. Imagine this. The power's out, the grocery store shelves are empty, and the milk in your fridge has already turned into a science experiment. With a sealed bag of powdered milk, you can still whip up oatmeal for breakfast, make mashed potatoes for dinner, or pour a glass of milk for your grandkids. This isn't just about survival, it's about comfort. In times of uncertainty, something as simple as a glass of milk can bring a sense of normalcy. That's why the 55 puns generation never let their pantries run dry of this stuff. They knew it could bridge the gap between chaos and calm. And let's be real, sometimes old-school solutions are the best solutions. Non-fat powdered milk isn't trendy, but it's reliable. It's the kind of food that doesn't just sit in your pantry, it stands guard, ready to step in when fresh options fail. So before you dismiss it as outdated, remember this. When the world feels unpredictable, a little predictability in your pantry can go a long way. 2. Powdered butter. The secret weapon. If non-fat powdered milk is the backbone of a smart pantry, powdered butter is the secret weapon. And let me tell you, this one's a game changer. Most people don't even know powdered butter exists, but once you do, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Properly stored, this stuff can last 10 to 15 years, no refrigeration required. That's right, real butter, shelf-stable and ready to go when you need it most. So what exactly is powdered butter? It's not some artificial substitute, it's real butter with the moisture and fat removed. The two things that make fresh butter spoil. What you're left with is a fine, creamy powder that turns back into butter with just a little water. And here's the kicker. It tastes like the real deal, because it is the real deal, just in a different form. Now, let's talk about why this is a must-have. Picture this. It's the dead of winter. The power's out, and your fridge is nothing more than a glorified storage box for spoiled food. You're staring at a pantry full of dry staples, rice, pasta, maybe some bread mix, and wondering how you're going to make any of it edible. Enter powdered butter. 1 scoop of this magic powder can turn bland, boring carbs into something warm, rich, and comforting. But it's not just about flavor, it's about morale. In a crisis, a little bit of normalcy can make a huge difference. Powdered butter isn't just food, it's a reminder that even when things are tough, you can still enjoy a meal that feels like home. Seniors knew that. They didn't stock powdered butter just to survive. They stocked it to leave a little better when times got hard. And here's a pro tip. Powdered butter isn't just for spreading on bread. It's a killer base for sauces, baked goods, and even instant potatoes. A spoonful can turn powdered milk into creamy perfection, or elevate a simple dish into something that feels gourmet. So, if you're building a pantry that can stand the test of time, don't overlook this unsung hero. 3. Powdered eggs. The survival superfood. Next up, we've got one of the most underrated survival foods of all time. Powdered eggs. And no, this isn't some weird lab-created concoction. These are real eggs, dried and sealed to last up to 25 years when stored in a cool, oxygen-free container. That's longer than most people keep their cars. Why are powdered eggs such a big deal? Because eggs are one of the hardest foods to replace in a crisis. They're packed with protein, healthy fats, and essential vitamins. Basically nature's multivitamin, but here's the problem. Fresh eggs spoil fast. In a power outage or food shortage, they're one of the first things to go bad. That's where powdered eggs come in. With just a few tablespoons of powder and a bit of water, you can whip up scrambled eggs, omelets, or even use them as a baking ingredient. No chickens required. Imagine this. You're stuck at home during a storm. The roads are closed and your breakfast options are running low. You open your pantry, grab your jar of powdered eggs, and 5 minutes later, you're sitting down to a plate of warm, fluffy eggs. That's not just survival, that's comfort and control. And here's a fun fact. Powdered eggs have been a staple for astronauts in the military for decades. Why? Because they're lightweight, compact, and nutrient-dense. If they're good enough for space missions and soldiers, they're good enough for your prepper shelf. Seniors knew the value of powdered eggs long before they became trendy. They understood that in a crisis, having a reliable source of protein isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. So, if you're serious about building a pantry that can weather any storm, powdered eggs deserve a spot on your shelf. 4. Powdered cheese, the flavor savior. If there's one thing that can turn a bland survival meal into a comfort feast, it's powdered cheese. And no, I'm not talking about that neon orange dust from boxed mac and cheese. I'm talking about high-quality powdered cheese, real cheddar, Parmesan, or even mozzarella, dehydrated into a fine powder that can last up to 20 years when stored properly. Why is powdered cheese such a game changer? Because it does 3 things no other pantry item can. It adds flavor, it provides concentrated nutrition, and it boosts morale. In a crisis, when fresh food is long gone, a spoonful of cheese powder can transform plain rice, pasta, or even popcorn into something that feels like a real meal. But it's not just about taste. Powdered cheese is loaded with fats, protein, and calcium nutrients that keep your body fueled and your spirits high when times are tough. Mix it with powdered milk and butter powder and you can whip up a creamy mac and cheese that tastes like it came straight from your childhood. Here's a real-world example. During the Texas blackout in 2021, one prepper shared how a single bag of powdered cheese kept their family fed and happy for 5 days straight. They used it to turn dry noodles, rice, and even canned veggies into meals that felt comforting and familiar. Seniors understood this. They didn't stock powdered cheese just for survival, they stocked it because they knew food isn't just fuel, it's comfort, resilience, and a little bit of joy in a bag. So, if you're building a pantry that can stand the test of time, don't underestimate the power of cheese. 5. Powdered soup mixes and bouillon, the flavor bombs of survival. Let's talk about one of the most underrated pantry staples that older generations swore by, powdered soup mixes and bouillon. These aren't just convenient, they're lifesavers when the power's out, the heat's off, and your pantry is looking sparse. A single scoop of soup powder can transform plain boiling water into a warm, hearty meal that feels like a hug in a bowl. Here's the kicker. When stored in airtight jars or mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, these powders can last an incredible 20 to 30 years. That's longer than most people keep their homes, let alone their pantries. So what exactly are we talking about here? Powdered soup mixes are a blend of dehydrated broth, vegetables, spices, and sometimes even bits of meat or noodles, all ground into a fine powder. Bouillon, on the other hand, is its concentrated cousin, packed with salt and flavor enhancers that make even a tiny spoonful taste like hours of slow cooking. Why does this matter? Because in an emergency, when fresh ingredients are a distant memory, these powders can bring warmth, flavor, and energy back to the table. Imagine this. It's the middle of a snowstorm. The power's been out for days and everyone's cold, tired, and hungry. You boil some water, stir in a few teaspoons of soup mix, and suddenly the house smells like comfort. Add a handful of rice, pasta, or even a sprinkle of powdered cheese, and you've got a meal that feels like survival luxury. But it's not just about taste. Soup powders and bouillon are compact, lightweight, and incredibly versatile. A single jar can make dozens of meals, making them perfect for small space storage or bug-out bags. And let's not forget the morale boost. There's something about the smell of soup that makes you feel safe, even when the world outside is anything but. Older generations knew this instinctively. They weren't just storing calories, they were storing comfort, hydration, and hope. Many even made their own soup powders at home, drying vegetables and blending them with spices long before instant ramen was a thing. So if you're serious about building a pantry that can stand the test of time, start here. A little flavor goes a long way, especially when times are tough. 6 Instant Potato Flakes. The comfort carb. Next up, we've got a pantry staple that's pure comfort in a bag, instant potato flakes. Better known as powdered potatoes, these humble flakes are the unsung heroes of long-term food storage. And here's the part most people don't realize: when stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, these flakes can last up to 25 years. That's older than most smartphones and still perfectly edible. Why did the 55+ generation swear by them? Because they're cheap, filling, versatile, and most importantly, comforting. In a crisis when everything feels uncertain, a hot bowl of mashed potatoes can make the world feel a little more normal. But don't think these flakes are a one-trick pony. Sure, they make great mashed potatoes, but they're also a secret weapon for survival cooking. Add a handful to soups, stews, or casseroles, and you've instantly thickened your meal and stretched your calories further. Picture this. A winter storm knocks out power for days. Your fridge food is spoiling, and everyone's cold and tired. You boil a pot of water, stir in some powdered milk, a bit of butter powder, and a cup of instant potatoes. In minutes, you've got a hot, hearty bowl of comfort that tastes like home. That's not just food, that's morale. And here's the beautiful part. These flakes aren't just tasty, they're nutrition-packed too. They're loaded with potassium, carbs for quick energy, and even a bit of vitamin C. Plus, they rehydrate easily, need no special prep, and take almost no fuel to cook, a huge win during blackouts or fuel shortages. Older generations stocked up on powdered potatoes because they understood practicality. Potatoes have always been a lifeline during hard times. Cheap to grow, easy to store. Powdered potatoes just take that same wisdom and make it modern. And here's a pro tip. You can even use them to make potato pancakes or gnocchi with a bit of powdered egg and water. Simple, filling, and shelf-stable, just the way smart prepping should be. 7. Powdered cocoa. The sweet side of survival. Not every survival food has to be savory or boring. Enter powdered cocoa, the ultimate comfort food in disguise. It's sweet, energizing, and can last 20 to 25 years if stored in a sealed container away from moisture and light. That's right, chocolate, that basically never dies. But here's the thing, cocoa powder isn't just for desserts. It's made from roasted cacao beans with the oils pressed out, which is why it doesn't spoil like regular chocolate bars. This makes it shelf-stable, packed with antioxidants, and incredibly versatile. Just one spoonful can turn a dull meal or drink into something warm and nostalgic. Imagine this. The power's out. Snow is falling outside, and you've been eating canned soup for 3 straight days. You heat some water, add a scoop of cocoa powder, a little powdered milk and sugar, and suddenly you're sipping homemade hot chocolate, while the world outside feels like a scene from a survival movie. That tiny moment of comfort can make all the difference. Seniors never forgot that. They stocked powdered cocoa, not just for taste, but for morale. It's the perfect blend of energy and emotion. A reminder that even in hard times, life can still feel sweet. And let's not forget, cocoa is naturally rich in magnesium and mood-boosting compounds. It helps reduce stress, improve circulation, and keep you mentally sharp, exactly what you need in an emergency. You can also use it creatively. Mix it into pancake batter, coffee, or even energy bars made from oats and honey. A little goes a long way, adding flavor, calories, and warmth, without taking up much space. So the next time you think of survival food, remember, chocolate counts too. 8. Powdered spices and seasonings. The tiny jars of magic. If you've ever tried eating plain rice or beans during a power outage, you know survival food without flavor is tough to swallow. That's why smart seniors always kept powdered spices and seasonings stocked up. Garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, cinnamon, cumin, you name it. These tiny jars of dust can turn anything into a real meal. Here's the amazing part. Most dried and powdered spices, if stored in a cool, dark place and sealed tightly, can last 10 to 20 years without losing much potency. And in a survival pantry, they're worth their weight in gold. Spices aren't just about flavor, they're about morale and health. A sprinkle of cayenne boosts circulation, garlic powder helps with immunity, and cinnamon balances blood sugar. When you can't get fresh produce or medicine, these humble powders can quietly keep your body and your mood running strong. Picture this. You're on day 6 of eating canned beans and instant rice. Spirits are low. You grab a bit of onion powder, some chili flakes, a pinch of garlic, and suddenly dinner smells amazing. Everyone's appetite comes back. It's no longer just rations, it's food again. Seniors knew that. Many grew up during rationing years and learned how a few teaspoons of spice could stretch meals, boost flavor, and keep life feeling normal, even when nothing else was. And here's a pro tip. Mix powdered spices into your long-term foods before sealing them. A pre-seasoned rice mix, or chili base, means faster meals and less waste when times get tough. So don't overlook these little containers of magic. They can turn survival into something you actually look forward to. And trust me, when the world feels uncertain, a little flavor can go a long way. 9. Instant coffee. The survival wake-up call. Let's face it, when disaster strikes, survival doesn't start with food for most people. It starts with coffee. And when fresh beans aren't an option, instant coffee becomes your lifeline. Seniors knew this. Preppers swear by it, and once you understand its value, you'll never overlook it again. Here's the kicker. Freeze-dried instant coffee can last an incredible 25 to 30 years, if stored properly in a cool, dry place. That's longer than most people's caffeine habits. The secret lies in the process. Real brewed coffee is freeze-dried, removing all moisture while locking in the flavor and caffeine. Add hot water, and it's like your favorite cup of joe never left. Now, picture this. It's day 3 of a blackout. You're running on fumes and the stress is mounting. You boil a little water on a camp stove or gas burner, stir in a spoonful of instant coffee, and suddenly, you've got clarity, warmth, and focus. That one small ritual can reset your entire mindset. It's not just caffeine, it's control in a chaotic situation. Seniors always kept a jar or tin of instant coffee in the pantry, not just for the taste, but for the routine. A hot cup of coffee makes mornings feel normal, even when nothing else is. It keeps you sharp when you're managing supplies, making decisions, or just trying to stay sane. And here's a bonus. Instant coffee isn't just for drinking. You can mix it into brownie batter, sprinkle it on ice cream if you're lucky enough to have some, or even add it to energy bars for a flavor and caffeine boost. A little goes a long way, making it a versatile pantry staple. So whether you're prepping for blackouts, camping, or just budgeting smart, keep a few jars of this brown gold. Because in tough times, coffee isn't a luxury, it's fuel. 10 powdered sugar and sweeteners. The sweet side of survival. Let's sweeten things up a bit, because survival doesn't have to be bitter. Next on the list is powdered sugar and powdered sweeteners. Here's the secret most people overlook. Sugar in its dry form basically never goes bad. Properly stored powdered sugar can last 30 years or more, making it one of the most reliable comfort foods you can stockpile. But this isn't just about baking. Powdered sugar, honey powder, and even natural sweeteners like stevia or monk fruit powder play a huge role in survival. Why? Because sweetness equals morale. It's energy, flavor, and a tiny piece of happiness when everything else feels uncertain. Imagine this. You're stuck in a blackout, eating the same bland meals day after day. A spoonful of powdered sugar can transform plain oats into a satisfying breakfast or turn powdered milk and cocoa into a hot chocolate that feels like a warm hug. When stress is high, that small comfort can keep your spirit steady and your energy up. Seniors understood this better than anyone. Many grew up during times when sugar was rationed, so when they could, they stocked up. They knew how precious a little sweetness could be during hard times. And let's not forget the practical side. Sugar is one of the best natural preservatives you can store. It prevents bacterial growth, which is why it's used in jams, jellies, and emergency rations. Powdered sugar dissolves easily, making it perfect for baking, glazing, or sweetening drinks with zero hassle. Pro tip: store it in airtight containers or mylar bags with oxygen absorbers to keep it from clumping. Keep it dry, and it'll outlast most other foods on your shelf. So whether you're prepping for peace of mind or planning for hard times, never underestimate the power of sweetness. 11. Powdered protein, the muscle fuel of survival. This next one might sound modern, but the concept has been around for generations. Powdered protein, whether it's whey, soy, or plant-based, has become a staple for preppers, athletes, and anyone who understands the importance of nutrition. Seniors may not have called it fitness powder, but they knew the value of protein-rich storage food. Here's why it's essential. Protein powders can last 10 to 25 years when sealed and stored correctly. That's decades of instant nutrition in one scoop. And in an emergency, calories are easy to find, but real nutrition isn't. You can survive on canned goods and starches for a while, but without protein, your energy, immunity, and strength will drop fast. That's where powdered protein steps in. Add a scoop to water, milk, or even oatmeal, and you've got a complete muscle-fueling meal in minutes. No cooking, no refrigeration, just shake and drink. During disasters, recovery periods, or long-term shortages, this stuff can be a literal lifeline. Think about it. After hurricanes or wildfires, when relief food is mostly carbs, rescue workers often rely on protein shakes to stay energized and alert during long shifts. That's the kind of practicality seniors understood. Food that works for you, not just fills you up. And let's not forget its versatility. You can bake it into pancakes, stir it into instant potatoes, or mix it with powdered milk for a creamy, high-protein drink. A small jar can fuel dozens of meals, making it a compact and efficient addition to any pantry. Seniors stockpiled this kind of power long before it was trendy. For them, it wasn't about bodybuilding. It was about staying strong, healthy, and ready. So if you want to build a pantry that truly sustains you, start here. 12. Dry whole milk, the creamy lifeline. Here's a secret that old-timers swore by, but most preppers today completely overlook: dry whole milk. Not the fat-free kind, not the diet version, real creamy whole milk powder that tastes just like the milk you'd pour over cereal back in the day. Why is it such a hidden gem? Because dry whole milk doesn't just last a few months. When stored in airtight mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, it can stay good for 20 to 25 years, sometimes even longer. That's decades of fresh-tasting milk at your fingertips without a fridge, without a grocery run, and without worrying about spoilage. For seniors, powdered milk wasn't just a backup, it was a lifeline. During tough times in the 50s and 60s, many households relied on it when fresh milk wasn't available or was too expensive. And it's still one of the smartest staples to keep today, especially for emergencies, blackouts, or long-term food storage. Just add water and you've got milk for coffee, cereal, baking, or even creamy soups. It's loaded with calcium, protein, and essential fats, making it a nutritional powerhouse. Here's a quick story. After a massive winter storm hit Texas in 2021, grocery shelves were bare for over a week. But one family shared how their jar of whole milk powder kept their kids fed and happy, from hot cocoa to pancakes, while everyone else was scrambling. That's the power of smart prepping. So, whether you're prepping for survival or just for peace of mind, dry whole milk deserves a prime spot in your pantry. 13. Meal replacement powders, the ultimate survival food. Finally, we've reached the grand finale: meal replacement powder. These aren't just for gym goers or dieters, they're the ultimate all-in-one survival food. A single scoop can replace an entire meal, providing protein, carbs, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals in one mix. Here's the kicker: high-quality meal replacement powders can last up to 25 to 30 years when stored properly. That's longer than most people keep their cars. Think of it as the modern evolution of the emergency rations seniors always kept, like powdered milk or soup mix, but packed with science-backed nutrition. In a crisis, when you don't have time to cook or even think straight, these powders shine. Just mix with water and you've got a balanced meal in minutes. No cooking, no prep, just shake and drink. And don't confuse these with gym supplements. Survival-grade powders are designed for balanced nutrition, not bulking up. They're lightweight, shelf-stable, and incredibly versatile. Add a scoop to powdered oats, blend it with fruit powder, or even bake it into energy bars. Seniors understood the importance of food that works for you, not just fills you up. They knew that in tough times, staying strong and energized is just as important as staying full. So if you're serious about building a pantry that can weather any storm, meal replacement powders are a must. They're the food that keeps your body moving when everything else slows down.